Welcome to A Woman's Strength, empowering stories from struggles to triumph. I'm Rosita, your host, fellow warrior, and advocate for resilience and empowerment. Through this podcast, we share authentic stories of women who have faced adversity and emerged as living testimonies of strength. Their stories will inspire you to break free from limitations, embrace your authenticity, and rise above the challenges life throws your way. Together, let's discover the strength within us and create a community of empowered women who support and uplift one another. Join me every second and fourth Friday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific on Facebook as we uncover the keys to resilience, self-discovery, and integrating faith with personal growth. A woman's strength begins now. Hi, and welcome to Moving Forward with Faith podcast. I am Rosita Perez, your host and founder of Moving Forward for Life and Moving Forward with Faith. Today, I have with me Krista Mariposa. Welcome, Krista.
Hi.
Thanks for joining me today. I'm so excited about this because we've been talking about it, and I just want to get into it. But first, I want our audience to know who you are, what group of women do you serve, and why you feel like it's important.
Yeah, so I'm a coach for moms who are raising happy, resilient, and confident kids through modeling her own self-care and self-healing. And that also goes into conscious parenting.
Okay, conscious parenting. We'll talk about that. Millennial and boomer.
Yeah.
And so how did you get into this niche?
Well, I am a mother myself, and I'm actually just starting my third trimester with my second pregnancy. So I think I just actually honed into this maybe just a few months ago, within the last 6 months, just reflecting on a lot of my experiences as a mom and realizing like how fortunate I am to be able to like live in a different country and kind of like see things from a different point of view and kind of take a step back from the American lifestyle that I was raised in. Which is actually funny because I'm actually a second generation American. So I have influence of like Filipino culture, American culture, and then now a mashup of like my own thing. And I just remember being confused and hearing so many conflicting pieces of advice and like not really knowing which way I wanted to take my family. And it wasn't until like I started having a relationship with myself and after actually going through a really, really rough time with like losing my dad and raising a newborn at the same time, that really like woke me up and gave me the pause I needed to like really think about how I wanted to take my family forward. And so I just realized like, maybe not everybody has to go through a huge like life altering event like that. But I mean, motherhood is in and of itself a very huge transition. So I just wanted to like highlight that for other moms, that it really can be this really cool opportunity for you to decide like who you want to be moving forward as like the leader of your own family.
Wow, that's great. First of all, I'm sorry about losing your dad. I know that was tough. It's always tough to lose a parent. So my prayers are with you. But what an awakening at the same time, right?
Yeah. For sure.
And we'll get into a little deeper when we start talking about our momming segment. But Chris and I connected on a leadership program, and we're both involved in just really honing into our niche and how we can really serve the women that we work with. And she came up with this idea of having conversations around the topics of momming. And then we started laughing because she's a millennial and I'm a boomer in quite different parenting styles, all with the goal of love. and raising the best kids that we can raise, but very different. And it's funny because her mom is a boomer and my daughter is a millennial. So this is a great fit. Krista, you want to talk more about that?
Well, I think one of the things that really drew me to you as we started having these conversations is just having that insight. Like I can only see with my own perspective, this is just how life happened, and the lens that I see things. So I often like butt heads with my mom, and it's a little difficult, but it's like I want to make it work because it's my mother, and I've always been curious about like, how can we see eye to eye, right? And I think one of the big ahas I took away from our first conversation is that it's like, it's never going to be all or nothing, right? It's never going to be like all my way or all her way or your way, but there has to be like a dance and a balance of these two things, because we're like, it's like the same thing. I can't fault my mother for being raised in the circumstances that she was raised in. So I think it's really nice to just hear it from somebody who I don't have this like strong emotional connection with, where I can feel more open, more flexible, and a little bit softer.
More receiving.
Yes, for sure. Less combative.
Ditto. My daughter, who's also a millennial, has children of her own. And so it was, I kind of liken it to when you're a new mom, your eyes are wide open and you are red. You're like looking at everything, making sure you're dotting your I's, crossing your T's as a mom, right? And then as they get older, your vision starts to kind of close up and they become teenagers and you're like, ah. And then as they get older into adulthood, then you got to start closing, because then you switch into, or you should switch into a coaching role, because they have to live their own lives. But that I can tell you, as a mom of the boomer generation, that is incredibly difficult to do. But as they get older, and then my daughter got married and I had to do this because I can't, if I see it, I'm going to want to fix it. I feel like that's just the boomer generation. And not to take anything away. I was never trying to take anything away, but that I can see from having conversations with you has really disrespected her. And that has, sometimes mom and daughters go through a dance that is, that can be challenging. Let me put it like that.
Yeah. Challenging to say the least.
Yes. Yeah. And two strong women, I always say I raised her to be strong, but I didn't think she'd use it on me. But in her own right, she's an amazing woman. She has come so far. And I really had to learn to step back. And that's just a whole nother story. But let's just talk about one of the differences while we are on this podcast. It doesn't have to be big, but something that we notice in our conversations that is quite different.
Yeah, actually, if I can just comment on what you just said about basically like letting our kids do their own thing, right? And just like having to take a step back and be the coach. And like, even though you see a train wreck about to happen, right? Like you can't, like, there are times when it's like, ooh, you just got to hold your tongue and just like let them learn. And I'm just kind of like laughing on the inside because I'm like experiencing that with my toddler right now. Like she wants to wash the dishes herself, or she wants to get water out of the water dispenser. And then of course, in both of those things, there's water all over the floor, and like, there's so many times where I just want to be like, let me do it. I'm going to do it better. I'm going to do it faster. I'm going to be more efficient at it. So, I mean, maybe that's one of the differences too, is that like, I check myself and I'm just like, okay, what is the bigger picture thing that's going on here? Like, I want to give her the opportunity to build autonomy, sovereignty, and like independence. So maybe this is a good thing that I can like let go when it comes to the dishes. She's not asking for a boyfriend yet. So like, it's like we got to pick our battles for what we can give them that space for. So I'm not sure if you experienced anything like that, in terms of like the control or the letting go earlier on, or did that just come forward in the teenage years?
I'll have to say I have been crowned the queen of control back in the day. But also that is the environment I grew up in. So I think that's super important to understand that our upbringing plays a huge part in how we parent. And it's not intentional, it just is, right? Because that's how we know it to be. And while I tried to change and shift my parenting style, and she was an only child, so that made it even more difficult. So the control was definitely there. And I did let her have some autonomy from time to time, but I was super overprotective. I found out later that I was parenting from a place of fear, and all that is from childhood. So I think that's super important for, moms in millennials to understand that as boomers, we're doing the best that we can. All moms do the best that they can with what they know. Now that I know what I know, I can do better, but I can't get back those times when she was a little girl. And you just have to forgive yourself at that point, because we're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
part of, earning the right to be a mom, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I can think back at my own childhood too, like the same kind of thing. It's like things had to be done a certain way. And that was it. There was a very small margin of error there. But I think something you brought up before too is that sometimes it's like necessary. Like in your household, for example, how many kids were there?
Growing up, I have 13 brothers and sisters.
So that's a lot to manage, right? So like if you don't have that strictness and that orderliness, then things can get chaotic really quickly. And for me, I grew up in like a mixed household where it wasn't just myself and my brother. But, again, another point is that like my parents had kids way younger. Like my uncle, who was the first one in my family to have a child, I think he was 17.
Wow.
And yeah, so that was like extremely young. My mom was 23 and 24 when she had me and my brother. So like at that time, they were still developing their professional careers. Like my aunt was in dental school and she like took a break to give birth, and then she just went right back to school. So like we were all raised together. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it is tough. It's just a different generation, different time, and you guys were blessed with a lot more, I'm going to say, than we had. And it's interesting that you talk about how, your aunt went to dental school and then she took a break to have the baby and she went right back. I think that spirit of tenacity is huge in the boomers. Not that it's not in the millennials, but I mean, it was so ingrained. Like I could not just sit around and do nothing. As a kid, that was unheard of. You have to be productive. You have to be doing something. And that is good in one sense, but on the other sense, I had to learn how to relax. And it took me decades to learn how to do that.
Yeah, that's funny because I'm just like, those are one of the like limiting beliefs that I have that I'm working through at the moment, that like, especially as I'm entering my third trimester, it's like, it's okay for me to relax, and even when I go into meditation, which is very important to me. And to me, meditation is not just like sitting there, you're doing nothing. Like, even though you are sitting there and doing nothing, there's like an intention behind it. Right. So I had a lot of resistance to like doing some self-care practices because I was convinced that I was being selfish or it was me being lazy. And for me, I wanted to break those beliefs because I noticed that when I do my self-care, I can show up better as just a human being. And as a mother, I can be more patient. Otherwise, I turn into what my daughter and I call mean mommy.
You've named it. That's important.
Yeah.
Name it, call it out, and get rid of her.
Yeah. Well, I still love on her. I'm just like, that's a part of me, but she doesn't need to show up as often and she does not need to run the show.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's interesting that you have that though, that you have that aren't able to relax. Is that from childhood or where do you think that stems from?
I think so, because like, I think as much as okay. So I think there's definitely like my generation is more like blessed with choices, and the fact that I got to grow up in the United States where there's just so many more options compared to what's available in the Philippines, right? Like, even still, I think there's learned behavior, right? You can't get away from what you see modeled to you. So I'm seeing my mom, not just my mom, but like my family, always constantly doing something that to me, my brain registers that as normal.
Yeah, yeah. I talk about that a lot when a lot of times things were not just shown that you put everybody first, but it was also caught, right? Because we as kids we're watching this, and all the women in my family always put everybody else first. And nothing that in itself is not bad. It's the fact that there was no room for self-nurturing, for self-care, and understanding and loving yourself. There wasn't that. It was a constant push, work, 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 taking care of everybody else. And so we're trying to unlearn that behavior. That's so interesting that you say that. I thought that was just the boomers, but I guess that's an eye-opener for me. Now I understand some things.
Yeah. And it's like you said too, it's like, it's not one or the other is good or bad, right? There, if you just take the judgment away, it's just like they have their place. But it's like, if you're 100% just giving away all of your energy and not replenishing yourself, then like, yeah, you're going to burn out. So there has to be a balance.
Yeah. I get a picture of a running waterfall, right? The water comes in and it goes up and has this beautiful waterfall, and then it goes back again. It's constantly recycled. So we have to fill ourselves through self-care, meditation, loving on us, understanding who we are to the depths of our soul, then we're able to give from a place of love. It's not just, oh, okay, just another thing, we got to do. Because sometimes it does feel like that, because you're giving from a place of obligation and it runs empty after a while. But if you self-care, it's just take remember the picture of a waterfall. You're replenishing and you're giving from a place of love. It's
For
a
sure.
whole different world.
Yeah, that's a huge distinction. Like, a want to instead of a have to.
Yeah. And that's something that, thank God you guys are blessed with that. Thank God you guys have more of a voice than previous generations who were moms. Because I know that I didn't really have one growing up, and then I had too much of one as a mom. So there was no room to listen to what my daughter needed, truly listen, not just hear her, but listen. And your generation is more doing that, where you're paying attention to how your kid reacts, what works, what doesn't work. I think that's beautiful that your generation can do that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm just thinking about like some people I know that I'm like, well, some of them are not quite where I am. They're kind of still in the middle, or still just like following in their parents' footsteps and not really, well, but that's their choice, right? They're just like, okay, well, this is what I saw being done. Maybe they liked it, and they're choosing to do the same thing again. So I think for me, it was like definitely like a butting of heads of just like, mom's making me do something. I don't understand why it's that way. It makes no sense. So obviously, when I become a parent myself, I want to change that.
Yeah. And so now how do you handle it with your daughter?
What exactly?
Just mom's telling me to do something and I don't understand why. That's huge.
Yeah, that bites me in the butt sometimes. I have to just remind myself, like, okay, she's 3. And although she is capable of doing a lot of things independently, like getting herself dressed and eating and getting water, I don't think she has the cognitive ability to really like be that inquisitive, like, why is mommy making me do this? It's just like,
Yeah.
she'll say no.
You could still instill that, right? You could say, okay, I want you to do this. And then she looks at you, you know, with that face that's so adorable.
Yeah.
And then, well, I need you to do this because ABC.
Yeah. So that would be called like reasoning with her. From what I've read in a few books. One in particular that I really love is How to Talk So Little Kids Will Listen. And then there's another book that's called How to Talk When Kids Don't Listen. Right now, those are like my Bible because it's so helpful. Me reasoning with a 3-year-old, it doesn't work. And I get frustrated because I'm like, I'm telling you the things that are so simple, so logical, yet you're not following what I'm doing. And that's when me and mommy gets activated. But I'm like, it's so simple. Why doesn't she get it? You know, it's like something we're going through right now is like body boundaries. Like she's touching me, like she had a very loving relationship with my boobs because I breastfed her till 2.5. And she's about to turn 4. And she's just like obsessed with this area of my body. And I've like, we even had like a special ice cream party to say bye-bye to the boo-boos, as we call them, but she still wants to touch them. Right. Yeah. And then like, to me, it's just like telling her, hey, please don't touch me there. I don't like it. It hurts me, whatever. Seems like a very simple thing, but she does it every time. So I have to remind myself that she's not doing it to like be malicious, like, or to be like evil.
It's just what she knows.
It's just what she knows. And it was such a source of comfort for her for like a very long time of her life. So I will instill the vocabulary for her. So it might sound like, okay, it sounds like you're not understanding. I'm going to move your hand now and mommy's going to walk away, you know, or like she doesn't like say she dropped something on the floor. I'm like, hey, can you please pick that up and put it in the trash? And she's just like, no. I'm like, okay. Usually what we do is we take our garbage and we put it in the trash bin. It seems like right now you are not understanding that or you don't want to do it. Just want to let you know this is where the trash normally goes. And I just pick it up. You know, I think
that's such a fine line, right? Because some stuff in life you just have to do. Like you have to, you know, keep your house clean, right? And those skills are taught and caught over years. So it's, to me, when you say reasoning, I in my boomer mind, I'm like, oh no, we're not talking about reasoning. We're just, you know, I'm just saying that you listen to what she's saying and then give a short, specific reason, like we need to do this because we want to keep our house clean. And then the part of it that's hard is releasing the judgment. Why doesn't she get it?
Yeah.
She's not going to get it, but she can see it. And it's implanted constantly, consistently in her. That will make the difference. And for me, I would always tell my daughter, just do it. I'm the mom. That caused a lot of friction. Man, I could talk to you forever, but we're like 1 minute away from ending the segment. And Krista, how can people get in contact with you? What's your Facebook website? How can they find out about you, any events you have coming up?
Yeah, I'm mostly posting on Instagram, but then I do integrate that into my Facebook page. So my Instagram handle is Thriving with Krista. That's Krista. And then you can find me on Facebook too, Krista Mariposa. And that's like Spanish for butterfly.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I just want to leave us with this quote. In the journey of motherhood, our generational diversity becomes our greatest asset as we learn from each other and grow together. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for joining us. We'll be having other podcasts, right, Krista? Momming, I think it's called Momming Through the Generations. You don't want to miss it. Thank you guys. Have a great day.